now I'd like to get Stephen on stage. So big applause for our speaker today.
Props.
Great. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, great. I'm going to start down here first. So we're going to do some participatory stuff today. Does anybody know what this is? This is our loom, right? Exactly. So I was hoping we could all weave a little bit together today. So I'm going to give you all, I'm going to do this. I need my hands. All right, that was better. Okay, that went better than I thought. Great. So I have this bucket of tools that I'm going to pass out. And I know some of you may not know weaving, but you might know what this is, right? It's just a giant needle. And so I know there's about 50 of us here today, so the timing is like kind of unrealistic, but I have a lot of tools and I have a lot of weird things here. So here's a piece of my shower curtain. Here's an old t-shirt from my job in the 2000s. But also, this is wool from Vermont, where I grew up. And this piece actually is really interesting because this farm has sheep, traditional sheep, but also sheep from New Mexico that bred together. And the farm there, they hate this wool because it's really bad for knitting. But it's awesome for weaving. So putting it in here, lots of other fun stuff for you to discover, and scissors. And so what I would ask you all to do is to find a piece something that you respond to in this bucket of goodies, like this very soft, I don't know, what's this called, like gross Michaels fabric? I love to go to art parts and be like, what's the thing nobody wanted at art parts in the yarn section? They're like, that's mine. They're like, thanks for coming and cleaning us out of all the ugly yarns. That's what I live for. And so I'm going to pass this loom around. And no pressure if you don't feel like weaving this morning, totally fine. But if you find something in this bucket that you respond to, feel free to use the needle or one of the shuttles that's in here to weave it into this larger weaving. And you can just cut off a little piece, and you can also just tie it right on. I put some samples of ways that you can think about attaching things on there. You can see some things are tied, some things are woven, some things are just kind of shoved in there. All those answers are totally great, okay? I'm gonna start this over here and have you guys pass this around, okay? So you're the first one, so I don't pressure. And then I also want to pass these out to the audience. I just have some samples that have been soft today. These are some little samples. I keep these reading journals with me as I travel. Let me pass the rest of them out. Thank you so much. I don't keep a written journal, I keep a weaving journal. And those are little samples from my weaving journal that I've done over the past 9 years. And so those are just little samples for you to feel as you pass along. Well, as I said before, let me move over here so you can see my screen. My name is Stephen Frost. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. I am in the Department of Media Studies, but I also work as an experimental weaver and associate director of the Unstable Design Lab in the Atlas Institute, which is the Science Technology Institute at CU's campus. So I'm in engineering, media studies, art, very interdisciplinary space. Also, this is my NASCAR jacket. This is everybody that I have to promote. And if you hit that, that's my website and all my info that's up there as well. Don't worry, I'll bring that back again in a little bit. So I want to ask you all a question this morning is, can you think of a shirt or a blanket or something a towel or something you may have held on to long after it's useful? Have you guys thought about that? Maybe band t-shirts. It's a pretty popular one. I have a Guns N' Roses 1994 Metallica shirt that is threads. It is. I will not weave that shirt. It's still in my closet. I have to have it. Can you guys think of some examples?
Baby blankets.
Baby blankets. That's a popular one.
My mother wants her tartan from her family healthy fun.
Oh my God, a tartan? I love it. I want to know. I want to see pictures. I love a tartan. I love the stories. Any other examples? Things you guys have held on to for maybe a little bit too long, but maybe not. What?
Pillowcases.
Pillowcases. What do you use those for?
I mean, I love sad pillowcases.
Just being used. Bad question. Stuffed animals, yes, stuffies. You guys probably have kids and hold on to that stuffy till it's really gross, and you try to replace it with the same one, but the kid's like, no, I want the scuzzy one, right? So
Maybe the older people have held on.
yeah, maybe the older people held on to it too, right? Yeah, I love that. Velveteen Rabbit, right? So this is one of the things that always has driven my work, is to think about this question: what do we hold on to? How do we evoke ideas? And today's theme is soft. And so when I think about the theme of soft, for me, it evokes the clothing, the things in our life that are around us that we give form to. And I think that's an important part of the concept of soft, is that something like a jacket, that's fine, we're back, good, that was quick. Things like jackets, blankets, our memories and our bodies give those things form as we find them. When I was a young artist, and lucky enough I do have some friends here who remember me as a young artist, which is crazy. When I was a young artist, nice, thank you Abby for being here. You might have even seen these pieces in the early 2000s. When I was a young artist, I was coming out as queer. And so for me, all of these symbols of the queer culture were so important to me as I moved through my young life. I also had a very good time as a young person. And so I started asking people that I went on dates with if I could have their underwear. It's rude. It's totally rude. I think I had like so many problems with my 2005 self. And so these are some of my earliest pieces. But what they really reflected, that idea, is that meaning, right, can be really evoked by textiles. That they can be things that bring together community, but they can also be symbols of our past. And I carried that through very much. This is an image of me from college. There's my first attempt at drag. It's pretty awesome. My friend Theo, he never really did drag, but he's so tall, he should have. And so I often think back to these moments where textiles allowed me also to transform. I shaved my arms mistakenly also for that. I don't know why I did that. When in the 2015s, I moved to California after graduate school, and there I met a friend named Frau Fiber, also known as Carol Francis Lung, who's an activist, who's a designer. And for Carol, she's always thinking about the larger system of textiles and the larger system of fashion, thinking through long from the triangle shirtwaist fire all the way up to our contemporary issues about fast fashion and the supply chain. And so Carol came up as her alternate persona, an East German textile worker named Frau Fiber, the concept of stop shopping, start sewing. And she founded this really cool organization that I was very lucky to be part of, called the Sewing Rebellion. And what the Sewing Rebellion did was it allowed people to alter, mend their clothing, and make them their own. It was really exciting. I loved this opportunity, and after graduate school, you're like, I'm really this one thing, but then you discover 7 other things, and it kind of, this mentors can be really important in that process. And for me, Carol was that person. And when I moved to Colorado, she said, I want to take this concept of fast fashion, and I'm going to use it in my art project. So I'm going to franchise. Would you like to be the first franchisee of the Sewing Rebellion? I was like, absolutely. This is Colorado. We love a franchise. So I started the Colorado Sewing Rebellion at the library. This was an amazing opportunity to bring textiles into the library when the makerspace began. So I got to help set that up, decide what kind of sewing machines to buy. I was like, I think we need a button maker. Oh, I think we need an industrial sewing machine. It was very, very, very fun. But one of the things that it did for me here in Boulder is that, I love hiking. I love all the mandatory things you're supposed to love as a Boulder person, Like, oh yeah, psychedelics, that's great, I love all those things. But I'm really an indoor cat in my heart. And so it's a little hard to find the indoor cats, the creatives, right? The people who are in their craft room and maybe not in the mountains on the weekend. But also both is totally fine. I love both things. And so the library became the place where I connected with those people. And while I held the Sewing the Rebellion workshop for about 4 years, once a month, on a Sunday, we'd have like 50 or 40 people in there learning new sewing skills, learning to alter their clothes, mending, making sleeping bags and tents and all sorts of crazy things. What we really were building actually was a community together. And that became the most important part of this project. Of course, my sewing skills are great. I no longer fear putting zippers into shirts, which is weird. Never thought that would happen. Zippers are so scary. But at the end of this project in 2019, as we started to do this, I was actually invited to a school, a craft school up in Maine called Haystack School of Crafts. They're awesome. You can do great classes there. They're wonderful 2-week classes, life-changing. I later got to teach there. I'm doing a bunch of projects with them still these many years later. But they started this project where they invited LGBTQIA teens from all over the state of Maine to a weekend at Haystack where they got to work with artists. And we, in our studio, for some reason I thought making fanny packs was something I should do with first-time sewers, which was crazy. But we also made our own pride flags. And this experience of working with LGBTQ teens, once again, it was something that really inspired me. And so when I came back to Boulder, weirdly that week, you know how the world behaves in really strange ways? I came back to Boulder that week, I got an email from my friend Elaine Waterman, who runs the Firehouse Arts Center over in Longmont. And Elaine said, I want to start this program for my child for LGBTQ teens in the Boulder area. They don't really have great summer programming for them. I want to start a program where they can learn how to sew, they can learn how to do performance, and they can be on the runway. And I said, that sounds amazing. Let me be part of that. At the time, I was a director of experimental theater inside of the engineering school. You guys, you creatives know, you take like 7 jobs, you're like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, I could do that for sure. So it's one of my side gigs was running an experimental theater during COVID. That was awesome. And so one of the things you see, you can tell we all have our masks on. Say sorry for the trauma, everybody. So we started working with these teens in about 2020, 2021, got a little delayed. And this workshop became something incredible because not only were they learning how to sew, learning to make their own work, but also we taught them, we brought in ballroom performers, we brought in drag performers to work with our teens and to teach them not only how to make clothes, but also how to make a persona, how to walk in the world with confidence, and also to make friends. So we kind of structured around fabric again. Here we are making all of their new friends inside of the workshop. This is actually one of the performances inside of the Atlas Institute. You can see I have a great dress in the background. Not as good as hers, though. She's way more talented than I was. Honestly, the first day she was like, I'm gonna make a bustier. And I was like, okay. I was like, boning, let's do it. That sounds great. And so one of the things about this workshop is it really allowed me to connect with my community here, to build community with our adults, but also connect with LGBTQ teens and design another culture. That was something that had been really important to me as I was leaving the project at the library. So in my own practice, I think a lot about this. How does textile give us meaning? How do we think about the past, right? It is something that's very soft, the past, right? And we need to sometimes put it together. So in my family, there's always been this ghost, my great aunt Helen. She died in 1995. And Helen lived with her roommate outside of Boston, sometimes known as a Boston marriage, perhaps, from the 1940s until the 1980s. Helen and Alice had a wonderful house. They had a beautiful garden. And as I became queer, came out as queer in the early 2000s, I started to think a lot about Aunt Helen and Alice and who they were in my life. And I started to work through all these photos. Later as an adult, I went back, I got a box of, you go back to your parents' house, you're like, I'll take all these photos, thank you. Your mom's like, get them out of the attic. And so I started to look through all these photos of Helen and Alice. And one of the things that is important, of course, as a queer person is seeing that visibility, right? It was an important part for me for Slay the Runways, for them to see creative, confident adults who were queer, working in the creative industry and loving themselves. And so as I'm also at the same time looking back at my Aunt Helen and Alice, but in all these photos from the 60s, I could never find a photo of them together. There's always one taking a photo of the other, looking through the camera at each other. You can really see it in this one right here from the winter. Those are great winter looks, by the way. They were really pretty stylish for a secretary and a gym teacher, which Alice definitely was. And so I stopped and saw these chairs in their garden. And, I'm a weaver, so I always look for the textiles in a thing. And those were the chairs that I often saw again and again in their garden. Here's another shot. And so in the mid-20 teens, I was thinking a lot about this. So I decided to do some different experiments. Here's one where I took my husband and my shirts together, and I decided to weave a chair-like pattern for this piece. Actually, funny enough, oh, Abby's in this photo. Here we are all those years ago. I was doing a project with the Denver Art Museum and working with Toyota, and they were like, do you have an image you would like to do for a car wrap for the opening day of the Rockies? And I was like, yeah, sure, for sure. I'm gonna put this like lesbian weaving on your car. So apparently, even a few years ago, I never went to the game, but it was in the Denver Art Museum for a month, and then somebody's driving around Denver in a RAV4 with Helen and Alice wrapped around the car. Then again, I was thinking through this project, and I was approached by the BMOCA to do a project for them in their Inside Out series in 2020, which was a great opportunity. And so I was trying to think about what I would do, and I really wanted that moment of Helen and Alice together. So I proposed I would wrap the entire museum with chair material, which apparently you can't cover doors and windows in buildings. I didn't know that was a problem. Artists, we learn as we go. And so then the second proposal was this one, where I took the shapes of the chair and turned them into the symbol of the triangle, which comes, of course, out of World War II concentration camps where queer people would use queer men were branded with the pink triangle. And then also became a symbol of AIDS activism in the 1980s and 1990s. So I took those triangles and I put just the tips of them together so that they would be touching. And I decided to construct this, of course, the audacity of artists. I was like, yeah, I built this, I could do this, it's gonna be great. So it's about 18 feet long each triangle, and then about 8 feet tall. So they're pretty big little triangles. This is us putting it up. I get to learn how to drive a pitchfork thing, or what do they call it, cherry picker? There we go. See, look, I'm so butch. And so this piece you can see here did finally get put up. And actually one of the craziest things is that, of course, the museum was closed for months and months during COVID, and it was the only piece up there. And finally, Helen and Alice at the museum, they could be together in this piece. So that was it for me. And I continued this work, of course, for a very long time and kept thinking about it. And this is another piece I made from that series where I performed as their child. I thought, what if they had a weird queer performance art child? That would be me. Look, here I am. And so I kept making this work and manifesting this work and reaching into the past to try to imagine who these people were who I didn't really know super well. And there was something about manifesting that moment of imagining my relationship with people who I didn't really have a relationship with, putting that out in the world. And then just last March, my mom said, hey, I'm looking through a box of photos. I think I have something you're really gonna like. And I was, of course, like on my way home. So she was like, I'll show you when you get here, you know, mom tricks. Mom tricks, you better show up. They live in Vermont, it takes a lot of flights. It's like a flight and a drive and a bus. And I got home and I walked in and my mom's like, here you go. I know this is what you're here for. And she gave me this. I mean, I love this boot, right? I mean, are we related or what? And so this told me that we can make it together, that we can find ways to connect with our past and also connect with our current self through textiles, and that it is a very valid and important form of creativity. So thank you so much. Let's make something together today. If you don't get a chance, definitely throw some strands into there. And that's my talk.
Thank you so much, Stephen. You, as the audience, have the opportunity to ask questions now to Stephen. So, yeah, who has a question? Who would like to? Barbara. Yeah. Do you want to go over this?
I know some for you, Barbara.
Yeah, so
What are you working on currently?
Oh, well, thank you, Barbara. Actually, this is great. It's like you're Ed McMahon, like plugging, helping me plug myself. I love it very much. Thanks to everybody who got that reference.
Not a lot.
No, not a lot anymore. I barely got it myself, but I have an opening at East Window Gallery in North Boulder on November 5th at 7 o'clock, 7 to 9. It's actually not a textile show. It is a show about objects and memory, though. In 2013, I asked a bunch of friends, mostly artists, to take a picture of their naughty drawer for me. And that's what the show is called, Naughty Drawers. And it's a collection of 20 photographs of artists' sex drawers. And it'll be on display in the bathroom of the East Window Gallery through the end of April. I actually turned it into wallpaper, so it's like dildo wallpaper. And I also do have a textile piece in a show at Spark Gallery that opens on November 21st. I'm also currently working with Henry Ford Museum on a project about Lowell Mills. If you guys don't know the Lowell Mills women, yes, okay, thank you very much. Early American textile workers, activists, started many of the early, were very important in the early American labor movement. And so what the Henry Ford Foundation recently took on the Lowell Mill collection. They have all of their samples that they made. And so one of the things we're gonna do is we're gonna digitalize some of the samples into a weaving software that we have that's used by about 400, 500 people around the country, including a lot of art schools use this to create files for their digital looms. It's called AdaCAD. And so we are gonna take their patterns, some of them, integrate them into the digital machine so that when you look inside of AdaCAD, you can find the Lowell Mills collection, and hopefully some faculty members at other institutions will be building little curriculums and little assignments to honor the women of Lowell Mills. 5 different projects.
Lots of projects. Anyone else? I think Darcy, did you have a question?
It was actually the first one that you talked about in November. Is that going to be at First Friday on November 7th as well?
No, I don't think that East Window usually is open on First Fridays. I don't know what's up with that, but it'll be open. You can just anytime the gallery's open, November 5th, 7 to 9 is when that opening is, and then it'll be open there until April 30th. So if you need to use a restroom when you're in North Boulder, go ahead and stop by. There'll also be a zine if you need to take some of those images home.